The NASCAR Chicago Street Race will not return in 2026. We'll talk about the future of that event. Marcus Smith talks about putting a roof over Bristol again. Kentucky returning. I guess we'll talk about it. And we had some high limit versus World of Outlaws drama on Friday night at Eldora. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. A late Friday afternoon news dump for NASCAR, like they're the NFL. NASCAR Chicago announced that the street race will not be returning in 2026, joining the long list of Chicago Bears coaches and quarterbacks that did not return for the next season. Instead, it appears that the event is going to attempt to take a one-year hiatus and return in 2027 with potentially a new date on the calendar. Obviously, Chicago had requested that NASCAR, if they do continue going forward, they could try to find a new date on the calendar off of 4th of July weekend, because it's a hectic weekend. Having been the last 2 years, there's a lot going on in the city, and then you throw a big time event and on top of that, and services are getting strained a little bit there. But 2026 calendar is laid out for the most part. Everybody's kind of slotted in where they're at. NASCAR's tying a few ends up over here, dotting T's, crossing I's, that type of thing. But for the most part, you can't just move dates around. Like, it's just not going to happen right now. So they're going to look at 2027, and for me, I'm bummed. I'm bummed that it's not returning. Yeah, we kind of knew that it wasn't going to return next year. There's a lot of talk about going to San Diego for a street race. That could potentially be confirmed as early as next week, according to Kelly Crandall over at Racer. But I enjoyed Chicago. I thought it was a really fun event in the downtown urban setting. It's unlike anything else you're ever going to experience in NASCAR. It brought the event to people that had never seen NASCAR before. The accessibility of this event was great. Literally stayed at the Black Zone, could walk right across the street, and there's a racetrack. I can look at the racetrack from my hotel window. It was incredible. I loved every second of it. And now for it to not come back is sad. I know there's going to be a certain subset of the fan base that is absolutely ecstatic about this, that is going to be so happy because Chicago's dangerous. That race sucked. You can't see anything. Street races is boring. NASCAR doesn't belong on the streets. Stuff like that. All by people that never went to the event. Same people that fed Carson Hocevar the Mexico's a shithole, lines. If you went to it, you would have enjoyed every single second of it because every person that was there that I saw last year and this year was having a great time. It's a fun event to go to, and NASCAR did an absolutely incredible job making it all happen. Especially for a series that had never done street races before, they did a great job. And this year, they reduced setup time by immensely. And they had all that stuff off of Michigan by about noon on Monday as well. So everything about the event got more efficient, got more streamlined, got better. I will say there was some, bit of a logistical headaches trying to get the teams from pit road back to where their haulers were, especially after the race. And that's all things that can absolutely be fixed if they were to come back in the future. And hopefully they do. Because like I said, I enjoyed this race a lot. I know it wasn't maybe the most popular thing out there, but it was a fun race to go to for fans. It was a fun race to go to take your partner to, especially if she's not that into racing. Because guess what? There's plenty else to do in Chicago, right? It's a gigantic city. Whether you want to go to a show, shopping, food, everything is very much available for you to do. You can go to the racetrack, and then at night you can walk to a very nice dinner, take an Uber to a nice dinner, catch something else that you want to do. It's a fun event. It's unlike any other event that NASCAR had, and that's why I'm kind of bummed that it's going away. Because, yeah, you've got Daytona. It's kind of set up in, like, the town of, Daytona Beach. Indianapolis is set up in Indianapolis, but none of it felt like Chicago. None of it had the accessibility of Chicago, and that's, I think, what I'm going to miss the most about it. We'll see what the San Diego layout looks like, whether it's going to be on Coronado, which is, in fact, a peninsula, regardless of what people think, or if it's going to be in the downtown area. I saw one person be like, well, hopefully they don't schedule it on Comic-Con. I think that the two sides can come together and be like, hey, we're not going to have it this weekend during Comic-Con. There's 52 other weeks in the year, or 51 other weeks in the year. We can figure this out here. So, yeah, that was a bananas comment that somebody made. But yeah, Chicago will not return in 2026. Maybe we go back to Chicagoland. If we in fact do go back to Chicagoland next year, every single person that said go back to Chicagoland better be buying a ticket. There better not be an empty seat in the house in Joliet. Joliet, maybe it is going to have good racing, right? The Gen 7 car race is great on intermediates, but in terms of what the Chicago Street Race did for corporate sponsorships, for fan accessibility and everything like that, Chicagoland can't touch that. And I think that's the part that disappoints me the most. So we'll see what happens with Chicago. I know NASCAR doesn't want to abandon the third biggest media market in the country, so maybe we'll see it next year, but we'll have to wait and see. Earlier this week, Marcus Smith, the head of Speedway Motorsports Incorporated, the company that owns tracks like Charlotte, Texas, Atlanta, Sonoma, Bristol, and others, went on to Kevin Harvick's podcast, which is actually a television show that they just cut the audio up and put on podcast networks, but we're not going to talk about that, to talk about, well, just the status of SMI and what some future plans are that he has. And once again, he brought up the fact that his big grand idea is to put a roof over Bristol Motor Speedway. And I think no offense to Marcus, we got to stop taking him seriously when he says that. At no point is there ever going to be a roof over Bristol. There's not going to be a roof over Bristol. He also said that you never say never with returning racing to Kentucky Speedway. And listen, I'm here. I'm going to, as the kids say, stand on business real quick. I'm going to stand up here, pull the microphone up. We're never returning to Kentucky. I don't think that's ever going to happen, and we're never going to put a roof over Bristol Motor Speedway. I would stand all the way up, but my head is going to hit the ceiling there because I'm too tall, so I have to hunch down. And I don't know if you guys actually saw the upper deck of the bookshelf there, but if you did, you saw more of collectible things up there, including a Simpsons Lego house as well. But let's get back into this real quick here. Putting a roof over Bristol just doesn't make any sort of sense. One of the things he said is like, oh, we want to put a roof over it so we can host events like WrestleMania. Buddy, WrestleMania is held outside in stadiums. I looked. It's been in like Philadelphia. It's been in Tampa Bay. It's been in MetLife Stadium. Like all these stadiums that don't have roofs over them. You can absolutely have WrestleMania there if you want to. I don't know how big a wrestling ring is, but I assume if you're sitting at the top of Bristol Motor Speedway, you might as well just watch from home. You have to break out some binoculars, look a quarter mile away. That doesn't seem very appealing to me at all. Having said that, I am very excited to get to the baseball game that was happening down there in just a couple of weeks' time. 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today. Wow, that's going to be quick. But I'm excited for that aspect of it. But putting a roof over it, can we just talk about the capital expense of that? I live in Cincinnati. The Bengals and the city of Cincinnati, Hamilton County, explored putting a roof over Paul Brown Stadium recently, like within the last couple of years. And the quote they got back was over $1 billion. That's a football stadium. We're talking about a half-mile racetrack to put a roof over. It just doesn't make financial sense. You're talking about $1 billion+ dollars? Where are you going to make that money up? You're not. You're just not going to. So I think we got to stop, with this fever dream of putting a roof over Bristol. Unless we want to just keep talking about ridiculous ideas, because I'd love to put a roof over a drag strip. Oh, well, let's invent a tarp system, go around the entire racetrack. Yeah, things like that. Things that just aren't going to happen anytime soon. So I'm all for grand ideas. I like big dreams, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. Then that brings us to Kentucky. He did say that if North Wilkesboro can be brought back, never say never about Kentucky. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and say never here. The reason that North Wilkesboro came back wasn't necessarily because Marcus Smith and SMI put a ton of money into it. They pledged $1 million, I believe, to put into that racetrack. They got $18 million from the taxpayers of North Carolina through a COVID stimulus bill that Roy Cooper signed into action. It was supposed to be 10, then it was 20, then they settled on 18. And that's really the reason why North Wilkesboro came back, is because the government money that they received to, basically revitalize that racetrack. I don't think the state of Kentucky is going to give SMI any sort of money to revitalize Kentucky. I know that they've kicked that around before, SMI wanting money from the state of Kentucky to get it done. And the way Kentucky views it is, you left us. Why are we going to pay you to come back to us? It doesn't make any sort of sense. So I don't think Kentucky's going to ever return back to the schedule. I don't think it would race very well. I think that they ruined the racetrack when they decided to make the banking different in either end of the racetrack. And I think that racetrack is just going to sit there and rot until the end of time. A racetrack that was embroiled in turmoil since its beginning, then has a disastrous debut for the Cup Series in 2011 in terms of traffic, never really put on a very good race, a lot of stinkers, and then, unceremoniously leaves the schedule because they wanted to move that second date to Atlanta under the guise of, well, we're not sure if Kentucky's going to let us host events there with people in person, and now it's gone. So I don't buy into the fact that Kentucky could ever come back. I don't think it will ever come back, at least not ever hosting a NASCAR National Touring Series. It just doesn't make sense. There's nothing around it. There's no hotels nearby. There's no entertainment nearby. There's really nothing out there in Sparta, Kentucky. Halfway between Louisville and Cincinnati. Should have been built closer to either city. I think it would have had a much better fighting chance out there. A lot similar to what we saw Kansas Speedway do, where a suburb kind of blossomed around it. It's just never going to happen in Kentucky. It, unfortunately, in my opinion, is what it is going to be for the rest of its existence, which is abandoned and has people walking through it, taking videos to get clout on TikTok and on YouTube. Oh my God, we found an old NASCAR. First off, it's a NASCAR Cup car. We can talk about that, but it's also whatever. Doesn't matter. I don't think it's ever going to come back, but I'm interested to see what people have to say. On Friday night, things got a little bit testy between one of the High Limit best versus one of the World of Outlaws best. The night before the Kings Royal happened on Friday, that is a World of Outlaws sanctioned race, but High Limit drivers were participating because, well, it pays money and they want to race in the Kings Royal on Saturday night. And while Rico Abreu, a High Limit regular, went to victory lane on Friday night, taking the World of Outlaws money, it was the battle for third place. And subsequently, what happened after the race that had everybody talking. Kyle Larson and David Gravel were throwing slide jobs on one another. And Larson, maybe threw one that was a little bit too close for David Gravel's liking. And Gravel, unhappy with him. Larson finished third on the podium on Friday night. After the race, Gravel on the backstretch at Eldora just pit maneuvers Larson, spins him out down the backstretch there. Larson obviously can't go anywhere now because the car is stopped and you need a push to start in sprint cars. Stopped alongside of him right there, rather. And they had a bit of a heated discussion. Gravel was giving him the bird, and Larson seemingly was unbothered by it. Both drivers got called to the World of Outlaws hauler after the race, and Gravel and Larson both shared some thoughts on social media. It appears to be what David Gravel was upset about was the fact that Larson put him in some bad spots. And he said maybe that's how they race over there in this High Limit versus World of Outlaws rivalry, which is exhausting, annoying, and completely unnecessary, continues to roar on. And he's like, if that's how they race over there, then like that's what they should just go do over there. And Larson's like, I thought we were just throwing slide jobs here. Like I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But Larson responded on Twitter with a photo of he and Gravel sitting side by side on the backstretch there, and it just said, just David Gravel and I ironed out the details of his 2027 High Limit contract tonight on the backstretch at Eldora, still negotiating terms, mainly how he'll handle racing against the best every night, and then with the crying laughing emoji. Gravel, not happy about that, subsequently went and tweeted out a video of him throwing a huge slide job on Larson, which was bait. It was absolutely bait, and a lot of people took it, but he ended up deleting it. Gravel responded with, 2 of your top drivers got hurt this week. Maybe that would open your eyes on how to race with respect. If you and all your fans think that how you race in a sprint car is racing with respect, you are fooled. I will take all the smoke. As far as the contract, better make it good. So that's kind of the antithesis of this. You have High Limit versus World of Outlaws here. And David Gravel is now the top of the World of Outlaws drivers, now that the best one over there, Brad Sweet, left to go to High Limit. He started that up with Kyle Larson. And we kind of have a very split field in terms of High Limit offers really good drivers and World of Outlaws offers really good drivers. And in terms of top drivers, I would argue that you probably have more over on the High Limit side of things than you do over on the World of Outlaws side of things. But I'm sure the World of Outlaws folks would argue against that point as well. Regardless, it's just two sides that just don't agree. They're not seeing eye to eye on any of this. Larson comes down. He's obviously a NASCAR guy. He comes down. He takes their money. He wins the races. Everybody talks about how great Kyle Larson is. And I'm sure it's super annoying for David Gravel and all the other people as well. But for now, it's kind of what you have to deal with. Kyle Larson is there. He's very good. He's going to throw slide jobs just like that. And for Gravel, he's had a rough week, right? He flipped in on Thursday before the Joker's jackpot. Big time wreck over there for him. Thankfully, he's okay. He said he was a little bit banged up, but he's fine. Ultimately, you don't want to see guys, getting hurt, getting wrecked, anything like that. Spinning Larson out on the backstretch after the race, that was probably going a step too far there. And if that was Larson doing it to Gravel, World of Outlaws absolutely would have hammered Kyle Larson for it. But it seems like Gravel has gotten off with nothing other than a, hey, don't do that. Again, maybe not even that. I guess we'll have to wait and see how it goes. But Kings Royal on Saturday night. I'm sure it's going to be an absolute all-timer because you got a lot of pissed off guys out there, and that track is very fast and very treacherous this week as well. So let me know in the comments what you think about Chicago not returning, what Marcus Smith said about Bristol Roof, as well as Kentucky, and the High Limit versus World of Outlaws rivalry as it rages on. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.